Mhm. Good morning and welcome to Space News Day 11. My name's Mike. I read the news so you don't have to. Today, there are no new Ars Technical articles. I'm going to re-say that. There are no new Ars Technica articles. Uh, So, we can go about reading one of the older articles. There are a few that we haven't seen. Most of the daily telescopes are beautiful images, but maybe not as interesting to read to a live audience. I have already covered this, and then recovers contact. Okay, so let's go through this Ingenuity article. We're already aware that the Ingenuity helicopter, a very tiny vehicle uh, cruising around the surface of Mars, has breathed its last breath after 72 sorties. It was a proof of concept vehicle. It outperformed its expectations by a ton. Now, one of the most impressive things about the device, and this comes directly from another article I believe was written by Eric Berger, was that it used a Qualcomm Snapdragon as its main computer. That is a computer that is not space rated, that is decades ahead of the compute power of all of the other missions, which are using radiation hardened BAE computers. So, very cool. Fantastic mission. Let's learn about how they lost and then recovered contact with the helicopter. By the way, this is something that I find very cool. The helicopter doesn't communicate directly with a ground station on Earth. It communicates with other vehicles on Mars, which then communicate back to Earth. One thing I'm curious about is what is the lag, the delay within what is the latency within the communication for low Earth orbit satellites. I know that the latency is sub-second, so you can send a command up. I have been working on a shell, like that is operating off of a satellite, a vehicle in space. So I'm sitting on my computer. It's like you Control Alt T on your Linux distro. It pops open a terminal, and then you type away. You communicate with the computer. You command the computer through that shell. I've done that on a live satellite. It's very, very cool. And we have we have the technology. We have the ability, and really that comes down to whether your bus provider is going to be willing to offer the throughput and to allow for that kind of live commanding. In any case, Ingenuity has been flying above Mars off and on for nearly 3 years. This is a beautiful photo. We have Ingenuity here. We have a Martian landscape, which honestly, I could see this being some sort of desert landscape on Earth as well. It's cool to see the parallels between our two planets. So the U.S. Space Agency, is this Space Force? Why aren't you saying Space Force? Prompted widespread dismay when it announced that communication had been lost with the helicopter. So this was on January 18th. During its planned descent, communications between the helicopter and rover terminated early. So the rover is the in-between vehicle that's passing communication through prior to touchdown. The Ingenuity team is analyzing available data and considering next steps to reestablish communications with the helicopter. I wonder what their backup protocols are, their recovery protocols are. This seemed like a bad sign for the plucky little helicopter, which has vastly outperformed its planned lifetime. So they only expected a handful of test flights. They got 72 sorties. The machine itself is only 4 pounds, which when you look at this image, you don't imagine that that's actually the case. But the helicopter is, I believe, mostly carbon fiber. At least the blades are, and so I'm sure the material used for the hull is very low density. Morning. Okay, an aging flying machine. Sorry. Good morning. Over the weekend, the Ingenuity flight team began reviewing the data from the helicopter to better understand why the unexpected comms dropped out. Unclear. So it was supposed to traverse in about 358 meters and get to 12 meters in altitude, spending nearly 125 or 2 minutes airborne. NASA had sought to reposition the helicopter for future flights to survey new areas of the Martian surface. I wonder what we have surveyed so far. Do we have information on that? Surface survey. Let's see what this tells us. Global geologic map of Mars. We have, I believe these are craters. These red spots, this is probably a thermal image of the planet. And so we have some hot spots and cold spots, whatever that means. Because I don't think there's water on the planet. So I'm not quite sure. So the new map brings together observations and scientific findings from 4 orbiting spacecraft. For hundreds of years, the maps have helped drive scientific throughput. Yeah, maybe you can interpret. Yeah, what about the... Yeah, so if we look at what the Perseverance is mapped, maybe that'll be more. Perseverance, Mars. App? I want to see where it's gone so far. So the landing site is here. We wanted to explore some of the formations over on this ridge. There's also the Curiosity, which is the landing. I don't know if this is the landing site. And then there's also the Phoenix. So there are at least 3 vehicles currently on the surface of Mars, and they are all exploring this rim of, it's called the Jezero crater. Okay, so I suspect that that's really all we've surveyed with vehicles on the ground at this point. It sounds like we have some orbiting craft that have also performed LMO or MO, Mars observation. Usually we call it EO, Earth observation, but that's going to be less and less the case as time goes on. So the Perseverance rover monitoring the helicopter and relaying data back to scientists on Earth. So with the Perseverance monitoring the helicopter, Ingenuity reached its maximum altitude. Then communications were lost. Over the next day, Perseverance dedicated more time to listening for Ingenuity. So part of the recovery protocol is just to focus more time on the receive radio, the rover's receive radio, and just wait and try to pick up signals from the Ingenuity, which I assume at some point goes into panic mode and just starts throwing out telemetry and warnings. So what happens now? Ingenuity has survived a lot on Mars, including communication issues, dust storms, long winters, and more. Expect the program's scientists and engineers to take their time. I'm curious, what are the winters like on Mars as well? Because you know that if you're in a higher latitude, so the equator has a latitude of 0 degrees, and then as you increase or decrease your latitude, you get closer to the poles, and you'll experience more and more serious, longer winters. I wonder if I assume Mars will experience the same kind of phenomena. So let's see how long those take. Also, the fact that its orbit is different than ours, it will have longer years. Longer years, right? Yeah, so its winter alone takes about 2 Earth years. No region of Mars gets more than a few feet of snow. They get snow. What? What? I said earlier that I don't think Mars has water. Maybe I'm wrong. Mars water? So Mars has has a lot of water. Sorry for swearing. Wow. 6 to 20% set 27% of Earth's present ocean. I'm learning so much. That's cool. If this is actually a real photo, I doubt it. This seems to be an artist's rendition. That will that would blow my mind. Yeah. Maybe that's what they were getting at. The blue is perhaps actually water. Okay, I'm so confused. The surface is presently cold and dry. This tells me there's no water, was my original expectation. Plenty of evidence suggests that the red planet was once partly covered with water. Researchers have theorized that life might have evolved on Mars when it was wet, and life could even be there now, hidden in subterranean aquifers. Okay, so it seems like the surface is dry, but it did have water at some point, I assume. Uh, but I'm so confused. That indicate that asteroids and comets from beyond provide the source of Mars's water that currently totals 6 to 27% of Earth's present ocean. See, the wording here tells me that there is water, but the wording in this other article, which I trust a lot more than what I'm reading on Wikipedia, that's that small snippet, is that there is no water, it's dried up, but they did have water at some point. So almost all water on Mars today exists as ice. Okay, it doesn't need to be liquid. Though it also exists in small quantities as vapor in the atmosphere. Cool. Okay, so do they use the word ice anywhere in this article? There it is. Most of the water on Mars today is likely frozen away in its polar caps. Okay, so here's one cap up here. I think if all of this water, if ice were to melt, estimates suggest that a sphere the size of the red planet might be covered in about 100 feet or 30 meters of water. So yeah, here's that north polar region that we saw up here. So this is very likely ice and contains all of at least half of the water, the other half existing at the other pole. Okay, that was a bit of whiplash. I apologize, but I also had to experience it. So to finish off the Ars Technica article, Ingenuity has survived a lot on Mars, long winters, 2 Earth years worth of winters. Expect the program's scientists and engineers to take their time to diagnose the most recent issue and likely perform more test flights. Not anymore. Yeah, and so Eric Berger even calls it. The reality is that it's probably a lot closer to the end of its flying days. I'm very curious as to why exactly it died. I don't think it was specified in the article we read previously. Let's just look for it. He used plucky again. Okay, so I don't think it's clear why the computer died. But here's the piece where they actually talk about not using radiation hardened components purely because they're just too heavy for the constraints of the mission. Anyway, I'm going to leave you at that. Thank you very much for sticking around, and we will talk soon. Bye-bye.